My family tried to secretly remove me from my grandmother's will, but they didn't know she had already predicted it. I used to think inheritance drama was something that only happened in movies. You know, the kind where relatives suddenly become enemies over money and houses. Turns out it happens in real life too, and in my case, it nearly destroyed my entire family. But before I explain how things exploded, you need a little context. My grandmother raised a big part of our family. She had 2 children, my mom and my uncle, and 3 grandchildren, me, my older cousin Tyler, and my younger cousin Sarah. Growing up, we practically lived at Grandma's house. Every holiday happened there. Birthdays, Christmas dinners, random Sunday lunches, everything. Her house wasn't fancy, but it was the center of our family. It was the kind of place where everyone automatically showed up when life got difficult. But as we got older, something slowly changed. People stopped showing up. Tyler moved away after college. Sarah got married and moved about 3 hours away. My uncle and his wife started traveling constantly, and eventually, Grandma was living alone most of the time. I happened to stay in the same town. At first, it was just coincidence. But because I lived nearby, I became the one who visited the most. At first, it was simple things, dropping by to say hello, helping her with groceries, fixing things around the house. But as she got older, she needed more help. Her eyesight got worse. Her knees started bothering her. Driving became difficult. So I started helping with more things. Doctor appointments, bills, yard work. Sometimes I'd stay overnight if she wasn't feeling well. The thing is, I never saw it as some big sacrifice. She was my grandma. And honestly, I enjoyed spending time with her. She had the best stories. Stories about growing up during a completely different time. Stories about how our family used to be before everything became so complicated. But there was one thing I started noticing over the years. My cousins rarely visited anymore. Sometimes months would go by without them calling. Grandma never complained about it, though. Whenever I mentioned it, she'd just smile and say they were busy. But sometimes I'd catch her looking at old photos, and I could tell she missed them. About 2 years before she passed away, something interesting happened. She asked me to drive her to meet with her lawyer. I didn't think much of it at the time. Older people update their wills sometimes. It's normal. She spent about an hour inside the lawyer's office. When she came out, she looked calm, almost relieved. I asked if everything was okay. She smiled and said something that stuck with me later. She said, "It's good to plan ahead. You never know how people will behave when money is involved." At the time, I didn't think much about that comment, but later, it made perfect sense. About a year later, Grandma passed away peacefully in her sleep. It was sad, but not completely unexpected. Her health had been slowly declining for a while. The funeral was emotional. Everyone showed up. Even relatives I hadn't seen in years. Tyler and Sarah both gave speeches about how much Grandma meant to them. Listening to those speeches felt strange to me. Not because they were lying, but because neither of them had visited much in the last few years. Still, I didn't say anything. Grief does strange things to people. About a week later, we had a meeting with Grandma's lawyer to read the will. And that's when everything started going wrong. The lawyer began reading the document. At first, everything seemed normal. Some jewelry went to different relatives. A few savings accounts were divided between family members. Nothing controversial. Then he got to the house. Grandma's house had become very valuable over the years. The neighborhood had grown a lot. The property alone was probably worth close to $500,000 now. Everyone leaned forward in their chairs. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the next line. "The house and property are to be inherited entirely by..." Then he said my name. For a moment, the room went completely silent. Tyler blinked like he hadn't heard correctly. Sarah looked confused. Then Tyler laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they think something must be wrong. He asked the lawyer to repeat it. The lawyer calmly repeated the line. The house belonged to me, not shared, not divided, just me. That's when the explosion started. Tyler immediately started arguing. He said there had to be a mistake. Grandma would never leave everything to just one person. Sarah joined in too. She said it wasn't fair. The lawyer calmly explained that the will had been updated 2 years earlier. It was completely legal. And then Tyler looked straight at me and asked something I didn't expect. Did you convince her to change it? I was completely shocked. I told him I had no idea she had changed the will. But he clearly didn't believe me, and neither did Sarah. The meeting ended with everyone angry. Tyler stormed out. Sarah barely said goodbye. And suddenly I was being treated like the villain of the family. But that was only the beginning. Because a week later, something even worse happened. I received a call from the lawyer. He sounded concerned. He told me someone had contacted his office claiming the will was fraudulent. Someone in the family was trying to challenge it. Apparently, they were claiming Grandma had been manipulated. And according to the lawyer, the person making the complaint was Tyler. That's when things got serious. Challenging a will isn't easy, but it can create long legal delays. The lawyer told me not to worry too much because the will was very clear and legally sound. Still, it meant months of stress. Then something strange happened. About 3 weeks later, the lawyer called me again. But this time he sounded surprised. He said he had discovered something important in Grandma's file. Apparently, when she updated her will 2 years earlier, she had also left a sealed envelope with specific instructions. The instructions said the envelope should only be opened if someone tried to challenge the will. Since Tyler had filed a challenge, the lawyer was now allowed to open it. Inside the envelope was a letter and a flash drive. The lawyer asked me to come into his office. When I got there, he handed me the letter. It was from Grandma, and it started with a sentence that made my heart drop. If you're reading this, it means someone in the family tried to challenge my will. She had predicted it. The letter explained that she knew certain relatives might try to fight over the house. That's why she had recorded something. The flash drive contained a video. The lawyer played it on his computer. It was a video of Grandma sitting in her living room. She looked directly at the camera and calmly explained why she had changed the will. She talked about how grateful she was for the time we spent together. She talked about how many times I helped her when she needed someone. Then she said something that made the entire situation crystal clear. She said, I know some family members may be upset about this decision, but they stopped visiting years ago. The person who helped me, who showed up, who cared, deserves this home. Then she added one final line. If anyone tries to say I was manipulated, this video proves I made this decision myself. The lawyer smiled and said that video would completely destroy Tyler's legal challenge. And he was right. When Tyler's lawyer saw the recording, they immediately dropped the case. But here's the part that shocked everyone. About a week later, Tyler called me. For the first time since the will reading. He didn't apologize. Instead, he asked something unbelievable. He asked if I would consider selling him the house at a discount. Apparently, he and Sarah had already been planning what they would do with the property, even before the will reading. That's when I realized something disturbing. They weren't upset about fairness. They were upset because their plan didn't work. So I told him no. I moved into the house a few months later. I fixed up the garden, repainted some rooms. Slowly, it started feeling like home again, and the drama eventually died down. Tyler stopped calling. Sarah eventually apologized for getting caught up in the fight. But sometimes I still think about that video Grandma recorded, because it proved something important. She understood people better than any of us realized. She knew exactly how some family members would react, and she planned for it, even after she was gone.